And like as I was looking at it, I was like, oh, like I'm just like so enmeshed in all like I just like throw myself into these situations and I don't even know who I am anymore because it's all about fulfilling the role instead of me being me and like loving and supporting the other person being them. Welcome to the Louder Than Silence podcast with your host, CG Wagner. This episode is part of the series From Survivor to Leader, where the other staff members and I are having discussions about all things LTS and what it means to be leading the work in long term care for survivors of sexual violence. It's a mix of our own personal experiences, the work that our team does, and how these two things impact each other. Our hope is that survivors feel seen and validated, and supporters gain a deeper understanding of what the healing process looks like. Our episode today is Overfunctioning, Codependence, and Burnout. Last month, we introduced the concept of overfunctioning and how we've each seen it show up in our lives. In having the conversation, we realized that there are so many interwoven pieces connected to overfunctioning. So today, we are having part two of the conversation about overfunctioning, specifically about the connection with both codependence and burnout. It's all one big vicious cycle. Each of these is deeply connected to the others, and understanding the knot is the first step to beginning to untangle it. With me today, I have our program manager, Joe, our social media and marketing manager, Christy, and our development manager, Brittany. To start, for those of you not familiar with the term codependent, Christy is going to give us the official definition for us.
Yeah, so the Gottman Institute, which is kind of gold standard in regards to couples work, is going to be they're going to define codependency as a harmful relationship pattern where one person's self-worth relies entirely on their partner's needs, their partner's behaviors, or their partner's approval. It causes the partner to lose their sense of self, their independence. In the codependent relationship, partners often merge so completely that true connection is actually lost. So some of the core features are going to be blurred boundaries, abandoning of self. It's just simply where you ignore your own needs to please your partner or you're afraid to say no. Control and enabling, that's going to be where you feel overly responsible for your partner's actions and try to control or fix their problems. An external self-worth, like your mood and self-esteem is going to rise and fall strictly based on how your partner treats you. And then on the blurred boundaries, I didn't elaborate on that, but that's not knowing where you end and where your partner begins. So you're unable to make personal decisions without your partner's input. Gives us a little picture of what we're going to be talking about.
All right. So on that fun note, so last episode we started the conversation about overfunctioning, and so this time we're picking that up with asking how overfunctioning has been connected to codependent relationships in each of our lives. So I'm going to hand it back to Christy.
So how overfunctioning has been dependent, say it one more time, sorry.
No, you're good. How has overfunctioning been connected to codependent relationships in your life?
In my life.
Yeah.
So it'll start, so how it's been connected for me in the past, if I can say a word, is simply like doing all the things, trying to fix the problem, not knowing where they start, where I end, not knowing where I begin, ignoring my own needs. If we, take, one of those things that I had mentioned in regards to, abandoning of self, there was a ton of that. And that can get really sticky when you're talking about, in a family dynamic where you're raising kids and all of those different things. And you end up really just kind of ignoring your own needs, maybe to please the environment, as far as the partner, to like make it be something that it needs to be for them, but you're not considering yourself in the process. So that's how that's fleshed out for me in the past, is just like Betty Homemaker, doing all the things, not realizing that that wasn't healthy. Does that make sense? Like I wasn't, yeah, it's not this die to self and then make sure they're okay. It's more like, oh, it's okay to actually take care of yourself, because in doing that, it helps you take care of the needs that need to be addressed in the relationship, if it's, with your partner, and also in expanded relationships with others. Yeah.
Taking care of yourself. What's that? And honestly, I did not understand the true definition of self-care until Louder Than Silence. So what a gift to have my eyes opened and begin to do that part of the work. But going back to overfunctioning, I feel like for me, overfunctioning, it was at the heart of all of my codependent relationships. And then you have to differentiate between a codependent relationship and a deeply caring relationship. And sometimes that line can feel very blurry, in and of itself. But it was like a loop. Um, so needing to keep a person happy and managing their feelings by my actions or my words. So I would continue to be a doer, and controller. And people would even tell me I was controlling, and I would get so offended, just very offended. And it was hard for me to see because I was helping. That was everything I was doing, was helping other people live their best life. Um, I actually considered myself a curator of life for others at one point in time. I was helping curate people's best lives for themselves, people I cared about. And this showed up a lot with my ex-spouse, with extended family members, with my kids. So it felt very messy once I could see it. And once I could see my role in it was very humbling. It still is very humbling. And then there was a lot of untangling from these relationships. Um, so it felt very sticky. And it wasn't until the untangling where I was able to get a much clearer perspective. Um, Especially with the lack of boundaries and not understanding boundaries and loss of self. Because you have to figure out who you are. And if you were raised in an environment or in a family system where boundaries, like you didn't talk about boundaries, they didn't exist, and it's something that's been lifelong, or like under like church culture, when two people become one, you die to yourself. So you're supposed to lose yourself. And it took a long time for me to realize that I also needed to be me, and that I needed to be separate from people I cared. And I could care for people better when I was true to me. And so it's been a process.
Thinking about this question, how overfunctioning was connected to codependency. So the Charles Whitfield and Joseph Kellerman's definition of codependency, because there's like a whole lot. As there's the gold standard, and then there's like when we were figuring out what codependency was, and then there was all these different ideas of definitions. And the first time I ever heard the term codependency was when I picked up Codependent No More, which I think was one of the first books published that like uses the phrase. And but anyways, so these two people, she gives like a bunch of definitions, and their definition is that it is a normal reaction to abnormal people. And I remember thinking about like the way that hearing that hit me, because for me, overfunctioning was the thing I did
because of codependent relationships that were like handed to me, if you will. Um, so my first like codependent dynamic would be with my mom. My Her parents both passed before she was 35. She had 4 kids at home, depressed, and naturally. um, and my dad was a workaholic, struggling with his own mental health. And naturally, I am a caregiver. Like that is who I am innately born to be. Um, and I was thinking in therapy recently, we were talking about like the um, family functioning, like how you figure out who you are via your family. And that it's like you find your place based on who you naturally are and like the holes within the family needs, right? So I just think about me as a child, seeing a mom who needed nurture, who was struggling emotionally, and a dad who was MIA, and that I'm naturally giving. So, at 5 years old, 8 years old, I just tried to take care of somebody that, like, no, a child should not be emotionally caring for a mom. Like, that is not a healthy dynamic. Um, but that was the like what was in front of me, right? And so I remember trying the over functioning kicked in. The like, well, if I'm a really happy kid and show her how much I love the Christmas presents, then maybe she'll be happy, because she's not happy in that moment. And I remember thinking like, well, if I acknowledge all the things that she's feeling, then maybe she can let me in emotionally. So I remember writing cards about how much she must miss her parents, like just like the level of trying so hard to emotionally regulate someone else, um, was so like just that it was what I was doing. I had no idea at under 10 years old what overfunctioning was, what codependency was, that there was an element of me trying to control the world because I needed nurture. So I was like, well, if I give a bunch of nurture, maybe I'll get nurture. Um, so the overfunctioning was started so young. Um, so codependency and overfunctioning, like, it's so intertwined for me. But it is interesting, like looking back, I think like codependency was what I like how all the way you relate with your parents kind of is like the framework you then place on all the other relationships. And so a codependent relationship was kind of my like idea that was relationships. um, so, needless to say, I kind of felt like a relationship was one which you gave all and like over did things, over functioned, made sure that they were emotionally okay all the time, checked in way more often than normal. Um, so, and I just think of the like level of anxiety of like always being on, of like, are you mad at me? Is there a reason you're mad at me? And like the hypervigilance of like reading their face, figuring out where they are emotionally. Um, yeah, that was just like my normal, like every day. Um, yeah.
Well, that hit way too close to home. Thank you for that. I'm just like, oh no, I have to go now. Okay. I mean, like, yes, too, what Joe was saying, this idea of like, for me, I would say it as I didn't understand the difference between caring for other people and over functioning for other people, and then like the codependent nature of it. Like, I would say well into my 30s, I did not understand the difference, where it was this assumption of, well, caring means fill in all the blanks, right? And the fill in all the blanks are whatever that relationship I felt demanded of me, right? Because if there was something missing in the relationship, well, clearly I was the one failing. Like, I was the one that needed to change. And it honestly didn't occur to me in a lot of different circumstances that, like, oh, like a relationship functioning is not dependent solely on my inputs. Like, I truly didn't know that. And it wasn't until having a conversation with a good friend of mine around a situation I was trying to untangle with one of my parents that my friend was like, well, you understand that you're functioning, right? And I'm like, what's this now? And like I hadn't considered the concept of like what I understood to be my role and my place was to make sure everything was going as smoothly as I could control it to be. And that was a very rude awakening for me because then once you see it, you can't unsee it, right? And so then it's like, oh, now I'm like looking at romantic relationships this way and friendships and, like seeing all these different things with, even how I worked with like coworkers in the past, right? Like all of these ways that just kind of permeated my life. And like as I was looking at it, I was like, oh, like I am just like so enmeshed in all like I just like throw myself into these situations and I don't even know who I am anymore because it's all about fulfilling the role instead of me being me and like loving and supporting the other person being them. And it still feels a little bit messy, right? Like Brittany, you kind of made the little nod to the like, what does it look like to have like a healthy amount of caring and love? And of course, there's like ebbs and flows in relationships and all of those things. And figuring that out has been quite the challenge because it was not clear for so long. Um, so now for all of us, how did these relationships begin to change as you began addressing your overfunctioning?
Not always good. So there's that. I think y'all touched, I was going to say real quick, y'all touched on some key points, which is like, and Joe brought it up. Like I wasn't even thinking about my family upbringing dynamic. And then she said that. I was like, yeah, of course. So the enmeshment component, and you don't realize what enmeshment is until you recognize enmeshment for what it is, and then the over functioning roles that you have, right? If you have emotionally immature parents, right? So like I was being raised by a single mom, and so I just knew a lot of things about a lot of things that I didn't. I was being the emotional support for her as like a kid, right? And so we could probably all agree that that's not a great idea, and that's going to terminate on itself. But this has been like I feel like this is my word for 2026. If I had like done a word, would be like, I cannot overfunction anymore. And like Brittany said, it's really hard to figure out, like I'm an Enneagram 2 wing 1 or wing 1, wing 2, like it can't decide what it wants to do. And so I'm a very deep empath. And then I also care about like justice issues, right? Like wrong, if something's like do the right thing, it's like, that's a thing for me. And so, of course, that's like the perfect cocktail for an overfunctioner because you're going to do the right thing. Like if they're not going to do the right thing, you're going to do the right thing. You're going to do it for them and it's going to be great. And so the biggest dynamic that I noticed in my relationship, some of them it was received really well. I have a good relationship with my spouse. And so, where I would begin to use this language, he was like, oh, I didn't even think about that, And so then like he stepped up to the plate in a lot of different ways, not stepped up to the plate as if like he gets a badge and a sticker and a star, but more of just like, oh, I had no idea that was a thing. Right. Because I didn't know that it was a thing, right? Like I didn't know it was a thing, especially coming out of the religious dynamic that I was in. I'm supposed to do all of those. He's just supposed to go to work and come home, and I'm supposed to make him dinner and all the things. And that's never been our dynamic at home, but yeah. Anyways, so in other degrees, not so well. I'm not talking specifically about my kids, but just to give you an idea, when I reference kids, my oldest is 28, my youngest is 11. And so there is an interesting dynamic when you're navigating things with adult children or, adults, other relationships, and so I have noticed where I would have had this, I'm going to step in and fix that. And then I'm like, oh no, actually, I'm going to let them, if they need my help, I'll let them ask for my help. And so I'm putting boundaries for myself. And sometimes those boundaries that I have placed for myself are received as I don't care about the individual, right? That I used to go make myself available to all the time, or as much as I could. And so it's it's a very sticky process because there's so much more peace now in not having to take on all the things. So there's a lot more peace in regards to that for myself. And then my little, just the way my brain works, are you being selfish? Could you, so that little guy that sits and talks up here sometimes, he's very active. And so it's interesting to not come against, but come up against that dynamic where you're trying to explain to someone it's actually healthier for you that I not do this thing. I don't mind helping, but for me to step in the way that might not actually be beneficial to you, I can't hold that anymore. And so it really does, man, it's messy. I mean, I don't know another way to describe it other than it's just very, very messy. Yeah. Sometimes received well, sometimes not so much. Yeah.
Well, and that's just very much the truth of it and the reality. For me, that's also the reality. I had people so the healthy people in my life, the people who are already healthy, um, understood, welcomed, I mean, even cheered me on. I see you, you're doing it. This is good. And then you have this sticky untangling that led to, some less time with certain friends and family, because maybe I did all the scheduling or coordinating of our time together, or just realizing and seeing that the relationship dynamic changed because I wasn't catering to everyone at their whim, or participating in the doing. Um, and then my boundaries were unwelcome, in a lot of those relationships. So there was a lot of pushback and even, adult temper tantrums at time. Some of the hardest, most challenging moments were when um, unhealthy people in my life would weaponize other people in response to my boundaries. So there were loss of relationships, and that led to grief. Um, so it is sticky and it's messy and hard. It's hard, but with that, it's so good. And I can't remember who, but somebody used the word free. It's freeing. It's freeing to step into yourself, to step into who you are and who you're made to be. And honestly, with my kids, I have children that span a wide age gap. And with the older ones, it improved our relationship. I thought I was going to lose them, maybe lose one or two, and that there would be distance, and there is distance, but not in an unhealthy way. They have space to be them, I am not trying to manage, and I am here for support and encouragement as they grow into adulthood. And honestly, I feel like they can breathe. They probably feel like they can breathe without me trying to um, do everything so that they can be the best version of what I think they should be. And, now they have space to be their full selves and whatever it is that they are. Um, and it was hard to get there, but being able to look at it now, once you get through, like you step through the fire, um, it's good and it's beautiful.
Uh, I it was a long process for me to change the way that I functioned in my relationships. Um, and I was thinking, like going back to, like I said, my first blueprint of overfunctioning codependency would be in my like family of origin with my mom mainly. Um, and I remember when I picked up the Codependent No More, um, that I like got the book being like, I think my relationship with my mom. Um, and when my then husband saw the book, he was paranoid that I was about our relationship, which is ironic. Um, and I remember him kind of like freaking out, like saying something to me about like, what are you going to do? Try to change everything. And like, as I read the book, I remember like that already was in my head, right? Where he let me know before I even changed, like before I addressed anything or whatever, just as I tried to educate myself, he already had let me know like that he was not comfortable with our dynamic changing. Um, and I think that that already set the precedence of like, stay in your lane, do the things, keep functioning the way you've been. Um, and unfortunately, like, I was very susceptible to outside influences affecting the way that I was. Um, and yet, he also realized that me having health, like stronger boundaries with my family of origin would be better for me. And so it was like this weird, like, yeah, have boundaries, just don't have them with me. So it's interesting when you have like thinking about the way other people react, like it can, especially unhealthy people, it can depend on how it's affecting them. Well, they can be your cheerleader, but maybe they're only cheerleading you when you're holding up a boundary with this specific situation. Um, so yeah, it can be real tricky and interesting to look at. One thing that was convenient for me is when I started this process of like seeing the way that I overfunctioned. I like moved only like 2 years later, and like moved like states away from where my most of my family lived. Um, and it was interesting. My to kind of to what Brittany was saying, like you did all the planning and you did all the scheduling. And I remember like the first holiday season without me, like we didn't do a gift exchange, I don't think. And I don't think the family did Thanksgiving or Christmas together. Like it was on them to do the thing. So no one did anything. Um, it also makes me think of like when I was the last kid to move out of the house. Um, and I remember my dad, like months later, being like, hey, did you like clean the hall room, bathroom, and vacuum all the time? And I was like, yeah, I'd vacuum once a week. And he's like, oh, well, like the house is dirty now. And I didn't know you did things. Like, because, like, again, they just like aren't aware of who's doing the functioning. So it wasn't until like months went by and he saw like how messy things were that, like, oh, I guess Joe helped out a lot. I didn't know that. um, so going back to how relationships change, um, I think my like family of origin is still struggling because I don't think anyone has stepped up into that role of planning. Because I don't live there now. I'm not there to do the thing, right? Um, in like I said, it took me quite a long time. There was a lot of pushback. Um, and relationships either had to adapt or end. Um, and kind of to what I said like last week on the podcast, like I feel like I gave too much grace in the like giving them all the opportunities to adapt, and asking calmly and gently before like uh, having to like show them some sort of consequences for refusing to learn the thing. Um, I think I still probably overfunction most of the time in lots of ways. Um, but I think the level of overfunctioning that was normal for me before made me shrink to the point of like self-exhaustion. Like I would give no energy to myself. And I think Brittany had said that like, who am I? Like I would just like it was all about everyone else. I didn't know anything about me. Um, and I think that is where like I have had the shift of like, no, I get to take up space also. I get to function for myself. If I want a thing, I can go get a thing. Um, but yeah, I think I know that it is still a situation that is a struggle for me. Um, and Brittany also talked about kind of the grief of like relationships that have to end. Um, I have had to grieve many relationships. Um, One thing I told a friend of mine was that as I made these changes, certain people started to like me less, but I started to like myself more. Um, and so that is what's important is like learning to like who I become. And I like the person who has boundaries and gets to take a day off. Um, and it is hard to see other people not like who I'm becoming. Um, but the person I wasn't surviving very well, anyways. So,
Well, I know I'm just one person, but I love who you're becoming. So that is true for all of you. Um, that it's been a joy to be part of all of this. Um, and and for myself, in thinking about this question, it feels so hard to answer because to what I believe it was Brittany who said, for the people who are already healthy, right? It was just a like, oh, good, you're doing this now. Like it, it wasn't an issue. It was, and I was able to verbalize with those people. I feel a lot of like struggle here. Like I'm having issues. Like this part of me is saying I need to do all of these things, or you don't want me around, or whatever, right? Like you can just say those things to people who are health, strong sense of self and boundaries. And and then I also got the people telling me that I was being unkind and cruel and unloving, and even having the question posed of like, how can you do this work and be so mean? And that, that still hurts, right? To think of like the decades of people knowing me and have the knee-jerk response not be to like rely on my character or whatever, but once I was no longer fulfilling something that they felt like they were lacking, now it was like a character assassination on me and how painful that was. And I can see in a lot of my relationships, while I certainly did like physical things that overfunctioned, it was the emotional overfunctioning that was like my primary role in a lot of different areas. And so like I refer to myself as like the emotional sponge. Like I was just supposed to just like absorb all of other everybody else's emotions and then like not have any of my own that like went out into the world. And I remember having this like one specific breakthrough moment where I had decided that I was no longer going to withhold saying what I wanted to say for fear of how the other person would respond, right? Because that was one of the ways I would overfunction is, well, I will just like deal with my own thing and like not cause any friction or not cause any issues for them. and like help them, manage whatever emotional response they were having at the time. And that one decision led to a whole lot of uh, changes in multiple relationships where I had one person tell me that I was just angry all the time. And I was just like, that me telling you my preference does not mean that I'm angry. It's just me saying a preference. Like I'm like, are you allowed to have a preference? Because if you are, I am also. And that was not acceptable, apparently. But ultimately, it ended like I had a long-term relationship and it ended a job that I was in. Um, it created a lot of distance with family members. Like I can see a lot of really big changes that came from this concept of like I will walk alongside of you with whatever your emotional experiences and whatever you're dealing with in your inner world, and I will no longer try to control it on your behalf. Like I'm no longer going to try to mitigate your emotional highs and lows. And it was wildly uncomfortable to like have to, because you'll just make the decision once, right? You make the decision over and over and over again until it finally sticks. And so having to like keep reminding myself, despite what other people were saying, was like I was actually doing the loving thing. Like I was actually helping people be the full essence of themselves without trying to like change something for them. And then being told, these all these negative things about me in response. And on this side of things, like we've said, the freedom, right? Where I get to be me and um and people can opt into that or not, and they can trust my character or not. And it makes life feel so much lighter when not trying to carry that on other people's behalf, for sure. So, connected to all of that. When you were in the throes of overfunctioning, how did burnout manifest? And how did you get out of it, or did you get out of it?
Yes and no. No, yeah. Uh, all the things. First of all, this is just such a great conversation. So when I was in the throes, one of the things I realize now is that, coming from a childhood of, that dynamic where there's the enmeshment and there's the codependency in childhood, and then coming into other relationships, I realized it was like my anxiety was a part of that overfunction in order to make it feel safe. And so like if I were to dissect the belief, it was, in doing this, then like this is going to be, it's almost like a coping mechanism, right? It was a maladaptive one. Like I didn't know that it wasn't a healthy one. So in the burnout phase, really the costs looked a lot like emotional loneliness, um, some resentment, because someone's not recognizing like what you're doing for them or giving to them or any of those. It's almost, I don't want to say it's like demanded of them because I don't think they actually know that they're doing it also sometimes. You know what I mean? Like that component, the component of the over functioner, like it also helps develop the under functioner, right? The person who's, if I'm just going to go and do the thing, yeah, they don't have to, they don't have to do the thing, right? Or they might feel incompetent. Like I might, in my overfunction, develop a feeling of incompetency for them, like them feeling like they can't do it themselves. And so So I do remember like feeling when I first kind of began to realize like, oh, I felt a little bit resentful because I knew what it had cost me on an emotional toll. Like CG, you talked about the emotional toll of it. And for me, that's what, that's kind of how it more so manifested than anything. Coming out of it, I love that. Like, did you get out of it? Yes, it's not always comfortable. But here's the cool thing is I like to look at or frame things like I get to practice this. So, I'll go through a couple different questions for myself. If I find myself, and it's usually like mine is generally tied to anxiety, right? And feel like, okay, what about this do I not like that I have to make feel safe? And then that kind of keys me into, okay, I might be stepping over their boundaries, but not realizing because they're not going to say anything, right? So, I mean, I think I've probably served in both roles, at different times. So I don't want to like diss on any of the roles. It's just, I am a female. So overfunction is my game. But the cool thing that I've seen in practicing it, like even just on the peripheral, I had a situation where I had reached out to an individual about like an issue that we had. And I had whatever, one of my kids say, hey, do you mind taking care of this? And I was like, sure. And so I reached out to an individual and the guy was like, hey, well, I need you to, type me up a list and send it over of the issues. It was like with a car or something. Then I'll have them take a look at it. And my response, like, this is what I mean about practicing. My response was, well, I'm not a secretary, but I will definitely provide you with the list that I jotted up if you would like for me to do that. And so it was like my way of practicing and asserting that because, right, like on the peripheral, culturally where I live, you don't push back. It's, my response a year ago would have been like, oh my goodness, sure, let me get you like a whole composite of all the things that I would like genuinely mean that, right? Like, let me get you all the things so that you have all the information you need to have. And instead I was like, because of his posture, I was like, well, I'm not a secretary, but I will definitely get you what I have drummed up or what I have noted. And that felt so empowering for me because with my trusted relationships, I can say the thing and do the thing and it's not a thing, right? And so now I'm at the point where I'm like practicing it a little bit further out in spaces where it may not always be received. But that's like such a stupid example, or it's not a stupid, but it's just such a goofy example but it meant so much to me because I know me and I know I wouldn't have spoken up or said something, but I felt like, I was being played, like something was being placed on me that I don't actually have to hold. Like, actually, you could just have been taking notes the whole time as I told you all these issues that we're having. I mean, that could happen, and so that's where I see the growth in it is in my trusted relationships, it looks one way and I feel secure in saying it when I say it. And it's not always received well, in further out, dynamics. But I also, CG, like what you said, like, me. So, and we are in relationship together, right? Like this isn't a social media relationship. Like we're in a relationship with one another. And so because you know me, is this something that I'm like characterized by? No. Okay. So let's give the benefit of intention, and just know that I'm practicing, this because it's been a problem for me in the past. Yeah. Anyway.
In the past, burnout for me looked like straight up meltdowns. Like I would melt down in tears and anxiety. Um, yeah, being sad and not understanding why. Not being able to see my over functioning and just not being able to hold the weight of the world around me and just dropping it all. It's like a server is holding a big tray of dishes and just and I'm just standing there sobbing. Um, I'm also too, and yay twos. So when I'm at my unhealthiest, I like it's just resentment. I resent everyone. Like if you're looking at me, I resent you. And so just the feeling of being like the feeling of being unseen and unloved in this very grand way was what burnout looked like. And with the unhealthy relationships, it I don't want to say it was just a feeling because I think there was like upon looking back at it, there was some reality that yeah, it wasn't seen. It was expected because there was never gratitude and yeah, my functioning served everyone and people's lives continued on in all the ways by my functioning. But Christy, to your point about the role of the underfunctioner, I now could see I was kind of like training people, for lack of a better word. And I would get a high. I would get a high from caring for people and doing all the things and checking off all the boxes at the end of the day. I wore my over functioning like a badge of honor. And it's wild to look back at it because now I'm in a relationship where we really strive for health and we can have these discussions openly and candidly and I can honestly share with him that I feel like I'm over functioning and I'm doing the things and if I feel like he's under functioning and an interesting thing is a common theme of these conversations comes to that a gentle reminder. He's like, you can ask for help for what you need. Um, because I'm still working on that, asking for help and communicating, not expecting him to read my mind, but communicating my needs and stating my needs. And that is something that still can be tricky for me. I'm practicing it. Um, but yeah, I have to be very intentional about keeping over functioning in front of me and caring for myself, practicing self-care, the boundary setting over and over and over again. Initially felt so incredibly hard. I remember thinking at one point, I'm like, I don't know if I could just keep doing this and I just need to cut people out. But there are relationships that it's worth it. And there are relationships that will evolve once these healthy components are set in place and everyone can grow into, like CG said, like into their best selves with these boundaries in place. It's hard work. It's necessary, but it is hard work.
Thinking about how burnout manifested. Um, I didn't even think about the like emotional aspect until Christy said like the emotional loneliness, and that like hit me. I was like, oh, that one. And it really wasn't until LTS that I like had people like s- like felt like the like emotional connection of like, oh, you actually can sit in this hard with me, like you're not gonna run away right now, and I can like have a full-blown meltdown or like an imperfect moment, and there's no punishment and there's no backlash and there's no like Like, you wouldn't believe how uncomfortable it is to have like people actually respond lovingly when you're not perfect. Um, when you're used to just like being abandoned whenever you have a need. Um, being abandoned whenever you have a need, yeah, it feels really emotionally lonely. Um, and the other thing was, I was so disconnected from myself, my own needs, um, my own body, my own emotions. Like, I didn't know how I felt hardly ever. Um, I remember at one point, me and my ex would joke that he knew how I was feeling better than I would, because it would get to like a boiling point where like I would just have like this really short fuse, and he'd be like, "Hey, you're like snapping at the kids easy, or snapping at me, like what's going on?" And then I would like take space, think about it, and I'd be like, "Oh, here's a list of emotional things I've been carrying. This is why." But it was that level of like just not aware of my own self. um but I would have a physical. So when I first thought it, I thought of the physical. When I was living a life that I don't want to live anymore, the disconnected, over functioning person, I used to get bouts of kidney stones, like often and bad. And being disassociated when you're in pain, like when I think about what because all things are like your body's doing something on purpose, right? It has like a healthy version, and then it has the unhealthy. Disassociation is great when your body is in physical pain and you need like a mental relief, to like get away from that. But when your body is trying to scream at you to stop over functioning, but you don't know how to feel your body, it can become dangerous. And I remember having one time I was having kidney stones. I went to a urologist, and mind you, y'all, I literally like, I didn't ask my ex to take off. I put a kid in a stroller and brought them with me to the doctor's appointment. And as I was hardly able to sit down in the office chair, like the chair, talking to him, he looked at me and he's like, "Why are you not in the emergency room? Like, I can see how much pain you are in right now. Any other person would have already gone to the emergency room and like be on morphine." And I was like, "Well, I'm going to take the kid home. I'm going to go make dinner." Like, that level of over functioning. And I remember the urologist telling me, like, if you have any kind of fever, rush to the hospital because you're probably septic and dying. Because that was how disconnected from my body that I was. Um, and I'll tell you, since starting LTS, I haven't had a kidney stone once. And I'm talking about like 12 years of having them fairly recent, like reoccurring. Um, so your body will yell at you if you don't listen to your emotions. Your body will start speaking loudly. Um, so yeah, that was how it would manifest in like a very real physical way.
Yeah. Feel that in my soul. Um, because I also would have a lot of physical, like the physical would manifest before I got to the point where emotionally I could recognize that I felt like it was too much. Um, so I also dealt with like a couple of long-term illnesses that like would not resolve, one in my 20s and one in my 30s. But I would also have sinus infections basically all the time. Like I would like get one and then just have it for like 4 months. And I just thought that was normal. Like I didn't, there was not a world in which I could be like, oh, other people don't have sinus infections for 4 months straight. Like it was just a like this is what life is. And it was like trying to I mean, she quietly at first let me know that there was an issue, and then she just started screaming at the top of her lungs until I finally stopped ignoring what she had to say. But similar to Joe, except I started EMDR before started LTS, but um, I I think I've had like two sinus infections since like starting EMDR, and I haven't had one in years now. Like it's like really it's wild, but it's not, right? That like this is how the body manifests burnout, and that we're overwhelmed and it's too much and we can't handle it anymore. And um and we've already talked about we're going to have this conversation, the burnout recovery, all that fun stuff as part 3 of this series because unfortunately we do need to wrap for today. Um so thank you for sharing your stories and opinions and perspectives and all those good things. And for the listeners, thank you for listening to the Louder Than Silence podcast. If you'd like more information, visit us at louderthansilence.org or follow us on Instagram at louderthansilence.org. This podcast and all of our programs at LTS are offered at no cost. So please consider donating today to support the great work. And don't forget to subscribe for the most current episodes. And we'll see you next month.